To order for Breezy Point City Council for Monday, June 6, 2022 at 7 p.m. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before getting going on item 3, presentations, I would like to take the time just briefly. You may recognize that one of our council members, Mr. Lillihei, is not present with us tonight. And the council would like to extend our sincerest condolences to Mr. Lillihei on the recent passing of his wife, Pam. She just recently passed away here about a week and a half ago. So we just want to offer our condolences to him and his family during this difficult time. That is just a little FYI for everybody. So moving on, item 3 on the agenda, presentations. 3A, Brainerd Lakes Economic Development Corporation, or BLADEC. I have Mr. Glenn here tonight. He's going to give us a presentation on what's going on with BLADEC. So welcome.
Yes, welcome nice to be here. Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and your new City Administrator, Mr. Chansky. Thank you for the invite. Nice to be here. Nice to see you all again. I'm going to just take a little bit of your time here to kind of walk through some of the things that we've been doing at BLADEC through this last year. And, but first and foremost, I want to thank you for your continued support of the work that we do, and hopefully the work that we are doing will, impact this community as it impacts other communities in Crow Wing County. BLADEC, so the Brainerd Lakes Area Economic Development Corporation, we're responsible for the economic activities that occur throughout Crow Wing County. And with that work, we continue to try and strive and help all of our communities, certainly the ones that support us, maximize everything that they're doing here, and hopefully it continues to show some good work that we're doing, and we continue to get the positive responses that we've been getting over the last number of years. I took over as the executive director about 2.5 years ago. Sheila Haverkamp had been our executive director for the previous 30 plus years. So in that time, obviously really fun to kick things off in the middle of a pandemic, but here we are, and we seem to have came through that all right at this point anyway. So some of the changes, especially in 2021, BLADEC rebranded itself. It's something that we hadn't done for, I'm not even sure when the last time they had put a new brand out there. So we worked with a firm to create new logos, new colors. It was really an exciting process for us and our board. We identified, our brand story and the things that we're about, and easier ways to tell our story. So it was a very positive experience, and we're glad that we went through it. With that, like I said, with the new colors and a new logo, also came a new website. We're trying to do things more efficiently, where our annual reports for the second straight year were created and only sit in an online platform, which sits out on our website, which is www.growbrainerdlakes.org. It's important for us to do this. We, going through the rebranding, we ended up throwing away about 2,000 old annual reports. So having them in paper really didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense any longer. So glad we went that route. So if you want to review our annual report, that's out there for everybody to see. Some of the things that we've been working on along with that, we also did a strategic planning session in 2021. The last time we had done one of those was 10 years prior. So it gives us and our board, gives the staff and the board some direction and some things that they want us to work on. Most importantly is extension of our services. So as long as we can continue to extend the services that we're offering and add new services to that, we know that that's going to help out the communities that we support and the business owners that we support in this community. So one of the services that we added, we are now a satellite location for the North Central SBDC, Small Business Development Center. They are located at CLC. And so we are now, myself and Allison Medic, who's on our staff, are certified consultants for the SBDC, but then we also work with other consultants throughout Crow Wing County to be able to offer services that involve financial projections for new businesses, financial projections for existing businesses, but also helping write business plans. Business plans, obviously, is those of you that have started a business, it's extremely important that you have that information available if you are going to try and borrow funds to get your business up and started. But it also gives the businesses a nice roadmap for what they're doing and how they're going to manage that business moving forward. So that contract started at the beginning of this year, and it'll extend out through the end of the year, and then we'll look at it again and make sure that what we're offering is good information and good service to the business community. And if so, then I would expect that we'll extend that contract into 2023. So that's 2022. A couple of the things I just want to touch on briefly. We were identified in 2020 and 2021 as the organization that helped lead the grants that came from the federal government to Crow Wing County. Through those grants, which started in 2020 and then extended into 2021, we were responsible for about $8.5 million worth of grants getting out to the local businesses in Crow Wing County. We have a great working relationship with county leadership. They come to us, they know we have systems in place that allow us to do this very efficiently. And then we're also the communication arm for them, so that when questions come as people were filling out these grant applications, we're able to filter that so that that information doesn't need to get to the county commissioners or to their administrative staff until it absolutely needed to. So good process for us, helped us continue to move our footprint, made us available to obviously a lot of businesses that in the past we probably wouldn't have had access to, small businesses, bars, restaurants, those types of things that don't need our services on a day-to-day basis, but through this process it really exposed us to a lot of them. So it was some exciting work. So then what that led to was towards the end of 2021 is with the ARPA dollars that the Crow Wing County received, the American Rescue Plan dollars, the county earmarked $800,000 for childcare. And it's something that we are very passionate about in our office. We have completed a childcare study that told us what we thought was already the case, but it solidified that. And that told us that in Crow Wing County alone, prior to the end of 2021, we were 1,200 slots of childcare short in Crow Wing County. 1,200. The state of Minnesota is 83,000, but 1,200 is a pretty big number for a county of 65,000 people. The pandemic drove some in-home folks out of business. Really challenging times for them to stay in business, dealing with kids and exposure and all of these things. So it did end up taking some of those. It ended up being 43. So 43 in-home providers stopped providing childcare services in 2021, which is a big number for Crow Wing County. So what we did with the assistance of Crow Wing County is we created an application form and we provided funds, $800,000 worth of funds, to be made available for new and existing child care providers. The existing child care providers, if they were making improvements to their house to make them safer, to make them more sanitary, we set a threshold of amounts of dollars that they could utilize from this grant or from these grant funds to, say, fix a furnace or to put new flooring in, do things like that. And then, but the big chunk of these funds was set out to assist someone starting a new child care facility or growing their child care facility. So with this $800,000, it created just over 200 new slots of childcare in Crow Wing County. So now these aren't turn a key, put these kids into a building and say we're ready to go. We also have a challenge with the employment in childcare facilities, especially in our center-based. Center-based are typically not a very high-paying job. They don't offer benefits, so the challenges are coming with that. But there are more funds coming from the state of Minnesota and from local organizations to hopefully kind of bridge that gap there and provide some increase in pay to child care providers, because without those people taking care of the kids, we're never going to be able to grow that. So it's turned into a constant challenge, but one of those award or grant recipients is based right here in Breezy Point. So the Ashdown folks, they've received and were approved for some significant funding to add another facility or another yurt on their property, and also an outside bathroom, which was required for the addition of new students. So we were excited to be able to work with them. They're a quality organization. They're doing some really good work, and it's something that is very unique, but it's also, from what we understand, being utilized at a pretty high level. So the next thing, I'll move on to a couple other things. As we all know, the challenges that face us, face these communities that we're dealing with right now, is the attraction of workforce. And as we look at workforce, how are we going to find workers? Every community, every county faces the same problems. There are a lot of jobs that are out there, and there just aren't enough people to fill those jobs. Now, I heard a presentation from let's see, who'd be the next person down from the Federal Reserve Chair in Minneapolis last week, and he said that of all of these jobs that are out there, and we all assume that people just don't want to go to work or are lazy or are just sitting back and collecting the money that's coming in from the federal government or the state government. His statistic was that it was 21%. 21% of those people are staying home just because they want to stay home. The rest of them, there are mitigating factors. It's transportation, it's housing, it's childcare, and there are reasons that people are staying out of the workforce that could be in the workforce. And those are the things that we're trying to address. We're trying to deal with the childcare shortage. We're working with all of our communities on the housing issues, working with trying to entice developers to come into these communities and put up housing. But we also understand that's an expensive process right now. Costs have risen. There's a shortage in workers out there. It's a pretty challenging time, but we're continuing to work on it. We've got a housing study that was completed at the end of 2019. So as all of you sitting up here know, and probably everybody in the audience knows this too, is the second that hit the press, it was outdated. So that's the challenge with the housing study or any other studies, is that they're quickly not as good as they could be. But I wanted to focus on and talk a little bit about this for just one more minute, and that is, so in 2021, in October, we celebrated the 5-year anniversary of our workforce program at Bladek. Those of you that know Mike Bierknes is the director of our workforce program. He has done a phenomenal job in the past 5 years in hiring and vetting employment opportunities. The position was created for Bladek's membership and those communities that support us. He only hires management level positions and up, which is, these are high quality jobs, good paying jobs for our communities. But in his 5 years, and I apologize because he sent this to me a little while ago, but he's hired for 26 different companies. He has, well, now that number is actually higher. It's 29 now. He has completed 72 direct hires in 5 years. 47, now that number is actually up to 51. 51 of those hires have come from outside the area. So when we look at that and say we're bringing new people, we're bringing new families into our communities, which is all fantastic. 61 workforce presentations. 9,418 resumes received. So when he posts a job, these are usually quality jobs, he's getting a lot of resumes, he's vetting a lot of this. 3,977 connections via resumes, and he's conducted over 2,600 phone interviews. So when we think about the job that he does, and he's gone right now, the mayor and I were chatting about this, and he does travel. His wife happens to have a job that they do travel from time to time, but he gets a lot of these things done wherever he's at, and he's extremely efficient at what he does. So it's exciting to know that he has already exceeded the budgeted number we have for him for this year for hires. So we budget for him to hire 11 people, and he's already hired, I think, 17 for 2022. Typically, I'd tell him to take the summer off, but let's not do that because he's really good at what he does. But that's just one of the programs that we have. Obviously, we have a lending program, our unified fund, that provides funds for businesses in a gap perspective. We've lent out over $1.4 million in 4 years. We still have 0 delinquencies with that, which is really exciting for us. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're doing and how we're doing it. I want to just quickly run through who our staff is at Bladek so that everyone understands who our staff is, and then also who our board of directors are. We have 9 board members, but our staff first, obviously I'm the executive director. Mike Bierknes, who is our workforce director, and Allison Medic, who's our special initiatives director. We did lose one of our staff, Megan Rabine. She decided she had baby number 2 in March and said, I'm going to stay home with my kids now, which good for her. And we supported that 100%. Our board of directors, our current board chair is Mike Dillon with Lexington Manufacturing. Our vice chair is Jim Hokinson, who's with Clifton Larson Allen. Julie Anderholm, who some of you probably know, is our secretary treasurer. She's with Anderholm Consulting, she's a consultant for the SBDC. Mike Larson with Essentia Health. Tom Haglund with Lindar Avantech and Triben. Carlo Gorgas with Pequot Tool and Manufacturing. Janelle Riley with Savantis Technologies. Terry McFarland with Anderson Brothers Construction, and then John O'Lean with Deerwood Bank. So that's who makes up our board of directors, and that's our staff. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have for me while I'm here. Otherwise, I can take a chair and let you guys move on.
Any questions from the council?
No questions or
Very,
comment?
very informative. A lot of great things you guys are doing, and happy to see that some of that's having an impact in the city of Breezy Point. And, you know, as always, the workforce issue is huge everywhere. And Breezy is not immune to that. I know that for a fact. So, the more that that Blada can work to help improve that, the better off that I think everybody in the county is going to be, so.
And I've been working with David for a long time, so obviously his phone call gets answered quickly, so his emails get answered quickly, so it's always happy to work with him as well.
One simple comment. Great news. The best report from Bladek I've ever heard sitting in these chairs.
Thanks.
My congratulations.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you. We'll continue to keep working, and, you know, we all know that sometimes these things don't move very fast, so we'd like them to move a lot faster, and we'd love to get more housing here everywhere, but
We understand that.
We're doing our best.
100%.
well, thank you guys again. Thank you for your support, and if you need anything, just let me know, but I
definitely
appreciate
will.
having the time to speak with you guys tonight.
Absolutely.
So.
We appreciate you having come and give us a report.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
very much.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Moving on, 3B, Weisenacre Angle Insurance. Did our presenter arrive?
I don't believe the
here?
representative is here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then, item 4 in the agenda is a consent agenda, and I will go down the list. Please note, it says one action topics will not be discussed unless removed from the consent agenda. Items requiring the expenditures of funds and budgeted items have been previously discussed and approved by the city council. So 4A, May 2nd, 2022 city council minutes. 4B, approval of claims totaling $137,072.63. 4C, confidential informants policy. 4D, approval of an evidence room exhaust fan installation. 4E, approval of police department office chair purchase. 4F, approval of 2022 dust coating. 4G, award of the 1991 tanker bid. 4H, resolution appointing election judges for the 2022 elections. 4I, appointment of Steve Jensen to the cemetery committee. And 4J, extending the application window for vacant planning commission seat. I just would like to mention very briefly, if any of you are interested in serving on the planning commission, we are seeking applicants. If you know anybody in the community that's interested in serving, please ask them to consider applying. We still have a vacancy and we'd like to have that filled. So if you know of anybody, please pass the word along to them. The information and application is available on our website, and you can also contact city staff and they can get it as well to you. So with that, are there any things that wish to be removed from the consent agenda by the council?
I do have something that'd be removed just due to clerical, so maybe we can correct it, but resolution 13-2022, I believe was copied over from last year where it states Gary Mitchell
Okay,
on here.
correct. All right, so we'll remove item 4H. I believe that's the resolution appointing the election judges for the 2022
That is
elections?
correct,
That's correct, yes, okay. So we'll remove that one for clerical. Any other things? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with removal of item 4H?
So move.
I have a motion from Councilmember Ball and a second from Councilmember Bakken. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? The motion passes. Okay. Moving on, item 5, open forum. Is there anybody here that wishes to address the council in open forum at this time? Is there anybody that wishes to address the council at this time in open forum? Hearing none, we'll move forward then. Item 6, mayor and city council reports and committee reports. 6A, mayor. First up, Joint Powers Board. Brief update, we had our first Joint Powers meeting between Pequot Lakes and Breezy Point on May 9th, I believe it was. That would be the second Monday of the month, which is when we'll have our monthly meetings now. As a part of the Joint Powers Agreement, for the first year of this agreement being in place, that we will have a meeting every month. So our next one is coming up now, the second Monday in June. It'll be the 13th. At the first meeting, we did select officers and took care of that, as well as some other housekeeping items that need to be done. The big piece that was tabled for this upcoming meeting was setting the bylaws. So we're looking at several different sets and options of bylaws. Pequot Lakes currently has a set of bylaws that governs their firefighters and their fire department, but we also have some other options to consider to look at, potentially a conjoining of those bylaws together. So we'll be considering that the next upcoming meeting. We continue to work through some of those formal processes with the joint powers, such as fiscal agent, legal counsel, different things of that nature, because the Joint Powers Board acts as a separate entity unto itself now between the two cities, with them then making recommendations back to each of the city councils to make decisions at that point as a whole. One of the things that will happen this year is that the city councils will meet jointly together. That is required as a part of the new Joint Powers Board. So they will be meeting. That date has not been set, but when it is, that'll be published and put out there. So I think, Rebecca, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I just think the meeting went really well. Everyone was participating. It was really good to get to be involved, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
Been a good
I think
process.
we're off to a good start. There's a lot of details to be worked out, but I think it's an exciting time for both the cities to be doing this together, working as a joint fire department. I think there's a lot of good things that are coming out of it, and I guess in a sense, maybe we're pioneering something here in the area. So we're excited about that, working together with Pequot, and it's been going well so far. So I'll continue to give updates on that as we move along. We did get an update of an incident report from the department, and reviewing it, there were no incidents reported in the city of Breezy Point for the last month. Actually, it looked like the call outs were very small for this last month, which is good. That's always nice to see. So hopefully that's a trend that can continue. I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to grab the Finance Committee, because that's kind of another one that I sit on. Councilmember Ball and I both sit on the Finance Committee. We met with city staff here recently. One of the big things that we talked about was the city is now, because of the size, because of its last census, we're now over 2,500 people. As a result of that, we are required to go to an accrual-based accounting system. So that's going to be a big change in how we do our budgeting process, how we do our books. And so staff and members of the committee discuss that. We also set a timeline for the budgeting process, which will be starting soon with our city administrator and other city staff, getting that put together and working towards that. Of course, that timeline goes really fast, and we're already there looking at approving a budget. So, but we are working on that. We did talk about ARPA funds or ARPA funds, and there are some recommendations that we'll be considering here further down in the agenda. The staff has a report on that, but we gave them some considerations to look at with regards to that. So we're excited about presenting that to the rest of the council tonight and talking about it. Again, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think it's covered, most of it's covered later on, some of the other points.
Yeah, especially the ARPA and a few other things that we'll be considering tonight too. So, so that's kind of the reports on both of those. Stepping backwards to B, and under Personnel Committee. Personnel Committee have a report that they'd like to give?
Yeah, I can give that, and Rebecca can correct me or add on anything. Personnel Committee met June 3rd. A number of items that we discussed, one of them being later on an agenda item about discussing about a 7th police officer, and we'll get into details of why that discussion. Conducting of a market study. This is something that we're going to get some bids on and take a look at what's out there for looking at this. And really a driving factor is today with the past 2 years, people are working from home. There's a drive to retain employees, and there's costs going to that. So we're going to take a look at what a study would cost and consider that potential. As you know, our police is a LELS union contract, so that is coming up due this year, so we're going to start negotiations for that. And then we also reviewed 5 applications for the assistant city administrator position. Those will be, interviews will be held the week of June 13th. And yeah, and again, the 7th officer we're going to be discussing a little bit later.
Sounds like the Personnel Committee's been busy and is going to get busier.
Yes.
Thank you for the report. Moving on, B3, Planning Commission. Mr. Chansky, do you want to give us a little update? I know Mr. Little High is not here tonight. He would be normally the one that gives us a report, but since he's not, would you do so, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just I have the report in the packet here. Yep, so the Planning Commission did meet for the regular meeting on Tuesday, May 10th. The main thing that they looked at on the 10th was a variance that was requested for an addition to a non-conforming property on South Bay Lane. After review, hearing testimony from the applicants and deliberating, the Planning Commission did vote to unanimously approve that variance with the findings listed in the packet that the applicant contends that the practical difficulty on the property is that there's an unplatted road, that South Bay Lane actually isn't a platted road. It's pretty much an easement that cuts the property right in half. The addition does conform to the 75-foot high water mark setback, so there's no issues there. It's consistent with the character of the neighborhood, keeping it as a single-family home. It's a couple that's actually turning what it was a seasonal home into a full-time home. They're keeping the impervious coverage under the 25% maximum, and then they also plan to install a rain garden to address some of the storm water runoff. Okay. After that, we did hold a brief discussion, staff we did with the Planning Commission, just to bring them up to speed on what the council's direction was when it came to the Ashdown School decision on the interim use permit, and just had just a brief discussion on what the council directed and coming back and reviewing some of those ordinances. And I know Jerry plans to bring back some discussion items for the Planning Commission for their meeting next Tuesday. Okay. And then obviously just had some open forum where, again, some members of the committee of the public just again shared just some of their thoughts on the Ashdown, how that went, and looking forward to have further discussion on that.
All right, thank you. Was there any questions from the council on that report? No?
None.
Okay. Hey, moving on. B4, Cemetery Committee.
All's quiet.
All's quiet. You have a new
No pun
member now.
intended. No pun intended. Yes, and it's our busy season now.
Yes.
Meetings coming up next week, I think. And they are, again, looking for volunteers to come out and help.
Okay.
That's all I can say. So spread the word if you want to come out there on a Monday and help these folks. It would be much appreciated.
And it sounds like they're preparing for the butterfly release days.
Yep,
So that's
absolutely.
happening,
Yep,
so, okay.
we'll talk about that soon, and it's pretty much a cookie cutter deal now.
But it's a great event. I
Yes.
encourage anybody, if you have not attended, please do so.
And bring
attend.
your children.
Yes.
The little kids love it.
I know the butterflies have now been ordered, I believe.
There's
so-
always some free butterflies too.
So come on out and join us. And again, welcome Mr. Jensen. He'll be serving on the cemetery committee with us moving forward. So happy to have him on board. Thank you for your time. Okay, moving on. Item 7, the agenda, administrator and staff reports. 7A, consideration of City Hall copier contract. City administrator?
Okay, I'll pull that up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the contract with Marco for our City Hall copier is set to expire. We did receive a new proposal for a new contract from Marco. This would include a replacement of our current copier. And it's actually nice to see that the actual terms of the new contract would roughly be about 30% lower than our current thing. It's not something you're seeing there now of lower prices, but that's what we got from Marco. Part of that, I think, this goes into, we've been with them for a while and just that longevity of being with that company. I'm really bringing it before the council tonight, mainly, even though this is a budget item, this is a multi-year contract that we'd be signing on to, and there's essentially two options. There's a 4-year option and a 5-year option. Obviously, you can see in the packet, there's the prices for the two options. The 5-year option obviously gives you a little discount because you're agreeing to a 5th year. After reviewing it, I am recommending that we contract for the 5-year proposal with Marco for the City Hall copier.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council on this?
None.
Hearing none,
None.
do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Bach and I have a second from Councilmember Maroney to approve the city entering into a 5-year contract with Marco for our City Hall copier. Any further discussion?
They're a good company. I've used them.
They are. Good. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, moving on. 7B, consideration of using municipal for sale of city property. City
Thank you,
Administrator?
Mr. Mayor. Again, we're just looking for the council to authorize us to use Municipid. It's a website that specializes in doing auctions for specifically governmental entities and school districts and the like. In the past, we've used eBay for some of our equipment, but we're looking to move to a kind of platform that's better designed and specifically designed for local governments, covers all the criteria we need to do for bidding. And because most of our items, sale of our equipment, we have to auction it off unless we're selling it directly to another government entity. One of the reasons recommending to use Municipid is because there is zero cost to the city. How they make their money is they have a fee schedule that they pass on to the buyer. So it's a certain percent. If the sale price, they have levels, and it's just a certain percentage. They have it right up in front on any bid item. So really, there's no cost to the city. We put it up there. Someone bids on it, they pay for that price, and then they either come get it or pay us to ship it for them. So that's what we're looking at to get. We have another number of items that we have. We've kind of been storing up, and we want to get out there and sold, and so that's why we want to use Municipid.
All right, thank you. Council, any questions?
Question, can we still advertise locally about any items that we post on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we would do would we post on there, and then we could obviously have a page on our website that says, auction items. You can go click the links, it sends you there. We can put it on our Facebook page. So anyone who's looking to that, they don't necessarily have to go to Municipid to find it. They can just go to our website. We'll have it on our website, and they can click the link to our items.
So for example, the tanker could have been listed on there?
It could have been, yes.
Okay.
And then also, again, part of that also, the benefit of it, it actually gets you a lot more exposure versus just putting it in the paper and posting it on our website. You get a lot more exposure.
More far-reaching.
Correct.
Yeah, covering more ground.
That's all the questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions?
None.
Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to accept us to go ahead and move forward with authorizing the city to use Municipid?
So move.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Ball, I have a second from Councilmember Maroney. Any further discussion?
I like that it can be advertised locally still.
Yeah.
It kind of takes the work out of us from opening and closed bids and no fees.
Well, yeah, definitely, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it meets all the needs that we need it to, plus the no fees is definitely a benefit to us as well, so. And I think it's on a solid platform that every, government entities are using, and I think that's a good, smart way to go, so. Right, good points. All right, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, 7C, consideration of ARPA funding priorities. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you said in your report for the Finance Committee, they did discuss options for the city's remaining American Rescue Plan Act dollars. The city will be receiving our second installment of funds in July, as we're anticipating getting that installment. Once we get that, we anticipate we'll have roughly a little over or just under $139,000 left to spend. That's the new payment plus a little bit that we have left over from our first payment. We presented a number of different options to the Finance Committee. Those are attached I attached the memo to the Finance Committee that they considered. And ultimately, they recommended 4 different expenditure buckets. They recommended $45,000 for a police squad purchase. That item is kind of has a dual purpose potentially, really one purpose, but as the mayor mentioned, I should say, Councilmember Maroney mentioned, discussion of the 7th officer, which is coming up. The idea that from the Finance Committee was, if we add a 7th officer, we're going to need an additional squad car, so this $45,000 can be used to purchase that squad car. If the council opts not to do the 7th officer in 2023, then this $45,000 can just be used to purchase the replacement squad that we were going to buy anyway in 2023. So it can be used either way to purchase a squad. $18,000 for essential employee pay. That's something you did last year that the council had expressed interest in doing again. $12,000 for office equipment, and then $60,000 toward the payment of a additional dump truck. With that, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if you want me to go into any other specific items on that, any questions that the council had. I guess I'll dive into a little bit actually quickly about the dump truck, if I can, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So I think one of the reasons with the addition for the dump truck, one of the main considerations with that dump truck is that we have identified that by the addition of another dump truck to be used as a plow truck, we can cut roughly 2 to 3 hours of additional time per snow event in plowing. And that actually likely, depending on the snow event, if it's a heavy snow event, that slows things up. But on an average snow event, we believe that the public works crew could then plow the entire city, potentially within a regular work day, cutting down on overtime. I did do just some quick crunching of numbers on what that might look like. Right now, a cumulative hour of overtime, so this is for, if all 5 members of the Public Works team are out plowing, and they each accrue an hour of overtime, that costs the city about $260 an hour. So that's their overtime wage plus all the FICA, the Medicare, everything that the city would feel as an expenditure. Last year, we had about 15 snowfall events. Roughly, we have around that number. Again, that's for the entire winter season. So if you did 15 snowfall events at 3 hours of overtime for each employee, that's 45 hours of overtime for each employee for the year. So if you did 45 times $260, it's about $11,700 per year. The dump truck, it should last the city some time. I could see it potentially lasting us up to 10 years. So over the course of 10 years, you're talking over $100,000 potentially in savings from just overtime. And that also doesn't include wage increases as employees are here longer and their wage increases as well. And that just means that's just from using the dump truck as a plow. Obviously, they would be used more than that. As you may have even seen even last week, it was out. We had our dump trucks and equipment out for last week, cleaning up brush from storms and just doing other projects around the city. So it's not a piece of equipment that would necessarily just use 6 months out of the year and sits the rest. The Public Works crew does make use of all of our pieces of equipment.
Thank you. Questions from the council on the things that were put out? Go ahead.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. If we agree to the layout as we have, is that guaranteeing that we're moving forward with the dump truck, or can we get more details on that later?
Well, we can always get more details on it later. There's always the option, as you heard him state, with the squad car. If the decision by the council is to move ahead with another police officer, we could still use, that money then to purchase another squad. So the funds can change as to what it's going to be used for. Yes, we can determine at a later point that maybe the dump truck isn't the best option, and we decide we want to take those funds and use them somewhere else. We have the ability to do that. A clarification, what's our timeline on the ARPA funds as far as how long we have before they have to be spent?
So they have to be obligated by December 31st of 2024. So we have time to use them. Really, our recommendation as staff is to get those expenditures identified, is because the longer we hold them, we have to keep reporting on them and keep tracking them. So the idea is if we know we have expenditures that qualify, let's just, use it now. Councilmember Maroney, to answer your question also, is this is kind of an item would be to be placed in the budget as part of the 2023 process. If the remaining funds to purchase that dump truck just aren't coming out, everything's not balancing, then the council, the finance committee could make the recommendation to, okay, we're not going to proceed with our dump truck, and then we as staff would come up with other options to spend that money.
So, Mr. Mayor, this is not committing us to any of these 4 items, but it's moving the budget towards the concept of doing these 4 items.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, and so the finance committee wanted to get direction from the council so that the budget process could be a part of that as well, because some of these things have to be considered if the dump truck is one of those things. But ultimately, as we go through the budget process, we may find that as we look at the budget and determine all the other things that are on the plate, that the dump truck isn't something that's going to make it. And so now we have to come back and say, here's some other recommendations from the staff saying, here's how we could spend these funds. So I think it's a direction to move forward, but again, we could be coming back later if we find that it's what and I don't want to speak for Councilmember Ball, but based on what we talked about, we felt this was the best out of the options that were presented with the recommendation going forward with this, of these are the pieces to pick out and use the funds for.
Okay? Thank you.
Other questions? Any questions,
None.
Councilmember Bacco? Did you have anything to add?
No, no. I agree with what you said.
Okay, so basically then what we're looking for is to be able to have a motion to move forward with using the funds as laid out, unless at a later date the council comes back and determines that we have to do something different with it, or more details are needed with as far as the item that's on there.
So moved.
I'll second.
So I have a motion from Councilmember Bakken. I have a second from Councilmember Ball. Discussion? No? Okay, hearing no other discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. Moving forward, next on the list, 7D. Direction on short-term rental ordinance. I will turn it back over to the city administrator to give us an overview.
Forgot the
Whoop, whoop.
7th.
E is actually
Back
off.
up. Oh, I missed one. D. Did I say 7D? Did I miss one?
You did say 7D, but
And you read the.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. Hang on. I'll get it. There it is. 7D, consideration of 7th police officer. Thank you. Yeah, I looked at this one. Don't look at this one. But turn it back over to the city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Personnel Committee, as Councilmember Maroney indicated during his report, did discuss the possibility of adding a 7th police officer. I know this is something that's been brought up in passing with the council over the last few months. Some of the considerations that the committee took into account include adding a 7th officer would reduce overtime costs, covering open shifts. 2 officers scheduled during evening hours when officer backup becomes more of a concern due to fights, domestic violence, and other calls requiring more than 1 officer. When an officer makes an arrest, they'd be unavailable if there's only 1 officer on to respond to calls for approximately 2 hours. It's the time to make the arrest, take them down to the jail, book them, and then come back. So that's the time that they would be gone. A 2nd officer would be continuing to give us coverage. Obviously, right now, if an officer does that, the sheriff's department would make that coverage. But then again, they're not necessarily in Breezy Point during that time. Give the ability to respond to 2 calls that come in at the same time. New legislative requirements mandate the use of de-escalation techniques when dealing with mental health crisis. That means it's going to take a lot more time when an officer responds to such a call of trying to de-escalate and address that situation. Some of those calls, talking with the chief, they can be half hour, 90 minutes of working with someone in that situation. That time that officer is ineligible to respond to other calls. Paramedic officers are required to work a minimum number of shifts with North Memorial Ambulance every year to maintain their employment. An additional officer would give the paramedics the ability to take more short notice ambulance shifts and use their vacation to do so. So when they come up and North says, hey, we have an opening, and they're looking at going, okay, I need to get my hours in, they might be able to, again, as it said, essentially use a vacation day. We can have a coverage so they can make that, use that, because we definitely want to make sure our paramedics are getting their required time in. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to keep their licensure up. With our large seasonal population, there's a lot of vacant homes and campgrounds, especially in the fall and winter months, that become vulnerable to thefts and burglaries, so it allows for more regular patrols. And there was discussion of, well, can we use some part-time officers, especially in those seasonal times, in the summer and on weekends when we see that influx. The problem becomes the amount of time, training, equipment, and cost are significant. A part-time officer has to have just the exact amount of training that a full-time officer has. They're required to have the exact same equipment that a full-time officer has, and they're going to be here a lot less. And then by being here less, there's a chance that they will eventually leave for a more full-time position. And we're seeing openings throughout the county. I believe the sheriff's office has openings. I know Brainerd has 2 openings right now. And that's what you're seeing in the law enforcement field. So the likelihood is that a part-time employee would seek full-time employment and then make themselves ineligible here. The city does have 1 part-time officer right now, but it's a very, I think, different situation, and that officer is a seasoned officer who actually has works in a different field and likes to keep up his licensure, likes to work in Breezy Point, and does shifts when he can, when he is able, but he's not as flexible. So that officer, while we have him, I think he's more of an anomaly than what we'd be able to find elsewhere. So while there are various circumstances that influence the cost of wages and benefits, for example, if they would be a regular officer or a paramedic officer, I know our goal would be try to get another paramedic officer. The chances of that happening, though, we're not super confident about, just for what we know of the current licensed paramedics in the Crow Wing County area. We estimate the cost would be about an additional $80,000 to $90,000 onto the levy just for wages and benefits. So upon discussing all these points, the Personnel Committee did make the recommendation for the council to direct staff to add a 7th police officer to the 2023 budget with the goal of hiring the officer in 2023. Again, as discussed with, I think, with the previous item, this direction is really directing, again, just to put it in the preliminary budget for 2023. So we see what those numbers look like, and when those numbers finally come out, the council would obviously make the final decision on this position when they adopt the 2023 budget.
I have a couple of questions. One for you to start with is, so would we be looking at a higher date of Jan 1 then? Is that
I think that would
somewhere
be,
in that time, at the
with
beginning
this
of
recommendation,
2023?
the idea would be a kind of a hire of January 1 if possible.
Okay. And then I have a question for Chief Sandell. Chief, can you share with me what the current staff loads are in neighboring cities, comparable in size? So say maybe Aiken, Crosby, others that are around the area. How many do they have on staff? What are they compared to us?
In our immediate area, we're fairly similar. If we start looking at population, Crosby has 2 more officers with lesser population. And everyone around here has seasonal influx of tourists, what have you, but not to our degree, I don't believe. And then the city of Aiken has 1 additional officer with less population.
Great, thank you. That's what I was asked. Other questions by the council?
I have nothing. I'm prepared to make a motion.
I know you guys
I want to stand on this.
So, okay. So we're looking for a motion to
So
look
moved.
at adding a 7th police officer based on our budget being put together, and it looked like probably a Jan 1 hire date. So
So moved,
I have a
Mr.
motion
Mayor.
from Councilmember Bach, and do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a second from Councilmember Maroney. Any further discussion?
A bit. Short.
Okay,
I want to congratulate the Personnel Committee for biting the bullet on this. I've championed this for the last 2 years, and I'm very, very proud of what's been done.
Yeah, I will have to say that, you know, based on the information that I've seen and stuff that the chief has provided to me, as well as our new city administrator, I do think it's necessary for us to look at having that seventh officer added. When we look at our population, when we look at how we compare to cities surrounding us, and the fact that, as we just heard the chief say, they have more personnel than we do, yet we're a larger populated city.
Sure.
In my mind, I guess it does make sense that we need to have that seventh officer to be able to make sure that we can give the coverage that's needed, because at the end of the day, and I've said this before publicly, it's important that the safety of our citizens are always considered as the number one priority, and whether it's police or fire, that's absolute paramount, so. With that, hearing no further discussion,
I'll discuss a little bit more.
Go ahead.
The other thing, you know, besides population growth, the other thing in the policing field is the amount of trainings have stepped up. When we need to send our officers to training, that's time away that they have to do, that we have to fill those gaps. So as that continues on. I do have one more question, Mr. Mayor, if I may, and I can direct to the chief, is how long have we ran with the current amount of staff that we've had?
that would be a question for the chief, absolutely.
I believe our number 6 officer was hired in 2006.
So there you go.
I presented some information. I could be a little off, but I believe it was 2006. And a portion of that is also to cover the Pelican Township contract. So
Right.
20 hours a week, so half of an officer every week is dedicated to Pelican Township. So
Yeah.
that was done in part at that time to cover that contract.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, what's our contract for them? Was it about 50-some thousand a year that we get from
I
them
want
for
to,
doing
off the
that?
top of my head, I want to say 56.
And we're looking at probably 80, 90, so if you want to look at it from that aspect, we almost have the position paid for with the fact that we're contracting out with them to do the services. Plus the fact that we haven't had a seventh, we've had 6 since 2006. That's 16 years ago. I don't know. I think Breezy was pretty small back then compared to what it is now. So with that being said, all good points. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to say, I think you alluded to this, but credit to, glad to bring the recommendation, but credit to the chief and to the administrator for bringing it to personnel
Yes.
to consider, so
Bravo.
thank you.
Absolutely. Good work all the way around. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we are approaching 8 o'clock. May I recommend we just take our 2-minute break to reset the recording?
Yep, good point. Okay, we're going to call a 2-minute recess. Basically, we need to reset our recording devices here, so we have a 2-minute recess. We'll reconvene at 7:55.